Alrighty, everyone, welcome back to another episode of In Depth with David. You guys must have missed me. You just saw me a couple hours ago. I just did a Celtics recap with my good friend Trevor. If you haven't taken a look at that, make sure after you watch this episode, you go watch that. We had some good takes on what the Celtics' current situation is against the Nets. But in this podcast, we will be recapping the last two Red Sox series since we didn't do one for the last series. So we will be recapping the Sox 3-game set against the Toronto Blue Jays and their 3-game set that just wrapped up yesterday against the Philadelphia Phillies. And I am joined once again, making his return, by my good friend Ricky. Ricky, how are you doing?
Doing good. Wisdom teeth out, done, feeling pretty solid. Got to watch, I think, every single Red Sox game, all 6. So that was good too. I got a lot of time to do that, played the show a lot. I stayed in the baseball world, but in a different way. So yeah, just a lot of cold foods, a lot of dairy, not great for my stomach, but just hung in there. So I know you're in a similar boat. So let's go.
Oh yeah, that's a big reason why I'm grinding out 3 podcasts today. It's just so I can make up for taking a little bit of a hiatus the next couple of days. But just I guess we'll do this. So we'll just talk about the first 3 Jays games separately from the Phillies. So if you can remember, what were your without bearing the lead, we'll say the typical phrase. What were your takeaways from the series against Toronto? Because we got really lucky, if you ask me. That's all I'll say.
Yeah. I think game 3 in particular, without going into how we got lucky, even though it's kind of known because that series was almost a week ago now. But
about a week ago.
Yeah, it was a lucky series. I definitely would agree with that. I think that's probably what I would sum it up with. Lucky, and I think the offense was very key. And this was a perfect example of what we've said and what most like baseball analysts and Sox fans and observers, even general observers, have said. Like, the offense is going to be dominant and is going to, in some cases, carry the pitching. And I think in this series in particular, I think the offense definitely helped out the pitching and really bailed them out. And some of our key offensive players that have been producing all year really produced. Again, I'm not going to say who, even though it's kind of known, but it was great to see them produce. Kike came back from injury, had a pretty solid series too, which was good too. I'm glad he's back from injury and looks good, to just touch on that. But yeah, I think the offense was just dominant, and they got very lucky. And the pitching was a little bit concerning, but like we've said before too, like there's going to be games where the offense bails out the pitching. So
yeah, getting into it, game 1 was Erod versus Hyunjin Ryu. If the fans don't remember, in a prior series against Toronto, we actually lit up Ryu. We got to him pretty early and took him out of the game, but that was not the story in this game. As bottom of the second inning, Randall Grichuk reaches second as Devers can't backhand a short hopper from third. It's kind of hard to blame Devers on a play like that. I know a lot of people use him as like a punching bag for the Red Sox defensive woes at times, but this is just a tough play to make. So Grichuk gets on second. Kevon Biggio singles, so now there's first and third, and then Danny Jensen singles to right, so that scores Grichuk from third, making it 1-0 Toronto already. Then if we jump ahead, bottom of the 4th inning, Lori Gurriel doubles down the right field line. Verdugo makes a nice diving catch and left to steal a hit from Biggio. So once again, just vintage Verdugo out and left. It's just really encouraging how he can play all 3 defensive positions in the outfield, and he makes another solid play there. And then Marcus Semien, who was once on the Athletics and is now on the Blue Jays. He's kind of been like an MLB journeyman. Bloops one to right. That scores Gurriel from second. And then the throw to third by Renfroe goes past Devers, so Jensen is able to score from third. And just like that, 2 more runs score in one swing of the bat, making it 3-0 Toronto. This was probably, I think, Hunter's first mistake in the outfield, kind of an errant throw, but it's bound to happen. I mean, it is what it is. So that cost the Red Sox, making it 3-0. And then because he changed his mind mid-throw, he wasn't sure if he was going to go home, and then he ended up going to third, so it changed the direction of the ball. And then Bo Bichette hits a double to left field to score Semien, or as I like to call him, Boba Fett, making it 4-0 Toronto. And then bottom 5, Teoscar Hernandez, the third baseman for the Jays, I believe, hits a leadoff double. Gurriel hits an opposite field single to right, scoring Hernandez, making it 5-0 Toronto. If you didn't get the gist already to everyone watching, this game is pretty much over from pretty early on. Red Sox would go on to lose 8-0. This was probably one of our worst games, I'd say, of the year. I would put this up there with the opening day loss to John Means and the Orioles when he shut us down for only 2 hits, and also the Easter Day loss with when we lost 11-3 to the Orioles. But
rough game, yeah.
I would say this is probably the worst the Sox have looked all year.
Yeah, I agree. This was a rough game. I'm glad too. This was the day my surgery had happened that morning, so I don't remember.
You didn't miss much.
Yeah, I watched the game, but it was so like forgettable and I was already in a state of being forgettable. So looking back at it, it's honestly good that was the day it happened, because that loss was horrendous. And like you mentioned too, a lot of defensive mistakes, which really cost the Sox. And Erod really struggled too, and we'll talk more about Erod later in regards to the Phillies series too, but to jump ahead to that. But yeah, pretty rough game all around. I'm pretty sure, was that the game where Phillips Valdez struggled as well?
That was in a later game in this series, but we'll definitely get to that too.
I remember it, but it was just bad. It's just a bad game.
This is probably the worst I've seen Erod ever. I'd go as far to say, like, this might be the worst start of his career, because I'm just looking at the stat line. 5 innings pitched, 11 hits, 5 earned runs, 1 walk, and 6 strikeouts. 11 hits in 5 innings?
That's bad.
That's awful.
Like 2-point-something hits per inning. That's really bad.
That's like, how do you, like, you have to try to do that. Like, I love Erod, but this is the second straight start. He's looked pretty bad, because he would obviously go on to take the L in this start. So he started off 5-0, and now he's 5-2. And things are bad when Erod is struggling himself, but the Red Sox, who are notorious for being able to give him run support whenever he's on the mound, are able to do nothing.
Right.
So just hate to see that. I think I left off, so 5-0. There was bottom 6. There was second and third. Hernandez singled off Matt Andriese to left to score Bichette from second. 6-0 Blue Jays. Bottom 7. This is really our only highlight of the game, besides the Verdugo play, actually, is Devers makes a nice diving play to stop the Jays from scoring, because I think they had a runner on third. So instead of it being us down by 40, we're down by 30, because Devers made a nice defensive play. And bottom 8. Vlad Guerrero, deep double to left center. Grichuk hits a 2-run homer to right to make it 8-0. So yeah, as I said, that would do it for game 1, as Toronto shuts out Boston 8-0 to take the first game of the series. And Ricky, things are bad when Alex Cora just lets Matt Andriese pitch the final 3 innings.
Yeah, that's the sign of just full-on surrender, honestly.
So that would do it for game 1. Game 2 of the series was Garrett Richards versus Ross Stripling, who way back when pitched for the Dodgers, but now he's with Toronto. Top first inning, Kike hits a leadoff single, and then Verdugo crushes one to right to make it 2-0 Red Sox. Then Martinez goes back-to-back with Doogie as he homers to right center, and it makes it 3-0 Boston. And this was Martinez's first homer in 12 games, which I thought was astonishing. It seems like it hasn't been that long, which was wild to me.
Yeah.
So just great to see him show off his power again. First homer in 12 games, and then there was second and third with no outs, and the Red Sox ended up getting 5 straight hits as Vasquez hit a grounder to score bogey 4-0 Boston, and then Bobby Dahlback doubled to right center to make it 5-0 Red Sox already in the first inning. So I just think it's crazy how even now that we're almost in June, the Red Sox offense is still able to strike early against these starting pitchers and run them out of the game pretty prematurely.
Yep. Yeah, that was a huge plus this game. Definitely.
Because this would end up propelling us to the win. It was 5-0 after 1, and then bottom of the first, Bo Bichette doubles to right field gap. Simeon thought about trying to score from first, but he ends up changing his mind after rounding third. So Marwin, who got the cutoff throw, alertly fires it to Devers, who just gets the tag on Simeon because Simeon was trying to run back to third to be safe. but Devers is able to run over and just quickly get the tag on him. So we're able to get an out there. But Vladdy Guerrero doubles to score Bichette, who just got the double the previous at bat to make it 5-1 Red Sox now as the Blue Jays are on the board. And then top second, Kike Hernandez leads off by crushing a homer to right, making it 6-1. It's great to see him come back from injury, like you said, and just come back into the lineup and make an immediate impact.
Absolutely, yeah. I've said this too, I'm pretty sure you have too on the podcast or separately outside of it, that I personally really like having Kike at the leadoff spot, honestly. I actually think I kind of like how they started off with Kike and then Verdugo and then JD, Bogarts and Devers, because I feel like all those guys on a good night can really give you good offense. And I think this night in particular was one of those nights with that cluster of guys produced, which is super, super key. So yeah, I totally was glad to see Kike back, and I'm glad he's, back from injury right away, because sometimes it takes a bit to rehabilitate. And I remember hearing too that he was like itching to come back when he was on that 10-day. So I'm glad he's back and producing. That was a huge boost. So.
And I agree with your point about having him lead off, because that's actually the one place I'd like to have him, because some people might say, like, why not have Bogarts lead off? Why not have Verdugo? But you want those people hitting when there are people on base. So if Kike is able to lead off the game and get on base, second up is Verdugo or JD or Bogarts, whoever you have. That's just a lot better of a situation for the team than having Kike hit with someone on, because nothing against Kike, but he's a career like 240 hitter. So I would have more faith in someone like a Bogarts or a JD to be able to get an RBI in a situation like that. So pretty solid stuff there. And as I said earlier, Ross Stripling is done after 3 2/3 innings. It was not his day for Toronto. 3 2/3, 8 hits, 6 earned runs, no walks, and 3 strikeouts. So, Stripling isn't a household name, but it's just phenomenal that late May we're still chasing pitchers out of the games early. Do you think this is something that the offense can continue doing into the summer? I mean, I might be turning into a homer here or whatever, but our offense has just been on a tear since the beginning of the year, as expected. But do you think, come June, late July, late August, we can still force these starting pitchers out of the game after like 3 or 4 innings?
I actually think so, honestly. Just because the offense has been this good, I don't, unless there's more sufficient injuries and it kind of slows everyone down a bit, I just see them sustaining this, honestly. I agree. Like, I definitely see it, because I know we were pinpointing too with the podcast too, like, where will the Red Sox be end of April? Where will they be end of May? And it just feels like the offense is continuing. And I even think in May, the offense was even a little bit more electric than it was in April. I just think there's been a lot of series where there's been blowouts or really high scoring games. So I see it happening. I mean, the Sox have been able to get too, in terms of pitchers, they've been able to get to aces. They've been able to get to just middle of the road guys. But yeah, I just think with the amount of success they've had doing that, I see it sustaining, honestly.
I do too. And the fact that we're bringing in reinforcements, like someone like Chavis, who came up in Kike's spot, but he's still up, and he's having a great season. But I want to say great, but he filled right in for Kike's loss. And,
right.
Other people like Bobby Dahlback starting to get going. Obviously, we'll talk about someone in the Philly series that we just called up, and Danny Santana. So We're getting all these reinforcements, and they're all coming in and producing offensively. So there's really no reason we should let down or let our foot off the gas. And I think we're living up to our expectations as a top 5 offense. Right. So, yeah, that's about the offense. What do you think about how Garrett Richards pitched in this game?
Trying to remember the exact stat line.
So I'll give my opinion on him. I thought he pitched okay. It wasn't his best stuff, like against the Mets, but he worked his way out of a few jams. He only gave up, he only gave up 2 runs. So he went 6 2/3 innings, 7 hits, 2 earned runs, 4 walks, and 5 strikeouts. So clearly not his best stuff, but he continues just to kind of turn that corner ever since a atrocious start to the year.
Yeah, I have it here. Definitely the 6.2 innings, 7 hits, 2 ERA, 4 walks, I believe, and then 5 strikeouts. So yeah, that's pretty solid. I mean, 6-ish innings. I mean, that's enough. I mean, he could have obviously gone a little deeper, but that's fine. And then 5 strikeouts is pretty average too. 2 ERA. I mean, he's definitely getting his ERA down in these starts, and I'm genuinely starting to really not panic. I don't know if you are too, but I'm starting to feel a little less nervous when I hear Garrett Richards is named the starter against the team, because I feel like he's proving and he's pitching well against good teams and divisional teams. So that's another plus too. So I'm really continuing to just keep an eye on Richards, and I feel like when he starts, I'm actually really intrigued in the games because I want to see him continue to improve. So I think that's great, and I think Martin Perez too is starting to continue and kind of turn a corner as well. So to see those 4 or 5 guys producing is great. I mean, they're not spectacular, and we've said this before, but that stat line, just average from 4 or 5 guys, is really what you need. I mean, until Sale gets back, and we'll talk more about Erod, but his injuries and things. I don't want to get into that. That's kind of a later thing because we'll talk about him in regards to yesterday's game. But it's good to have these guys later produce, and I'm glad Pavetta's matching him well too, just to assess that whole group of guys. So
I'm starting to rely on Garrett Richards a lot more for sure. He's definitely becoming one of our more dependable pitchers, and we can attribute that to him kind of changing his throwing mechanics. I think he did it right before his gem against the Mets over a month ago, around a month ago. So you can just see the results paying off. I'm starting to believe in a Garrett Richards hype train. Again, this wasn't his best stuff in this game, but the thing that sticks out to me the most is that one of our bottom end pitchers, as you said, is going 6 2/3 innings, because Red Sox starters, it seems like we're hot and cold this year, where either we can go really deep or we're at that like 5-inning threshold where it's no more but no less. So the fact that Garrett Richards is going into the 7th inning, and I think he's done this consistently over the last few starts, is going deeper into games, that's huge. And it's not like he's going in deep and he's like giving up 3 or 4 runs. He's going almost 7 innings, giving up maybe 2 or 3 runs, and we don't have to rely on the bullpen as much. So that's really what sticks out to me.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then after Richards is done, after 7 innings, or bottom of the 7th, he's done, and Whitlock comes in, and Semien takes Garrett Whitlock deep to left field. It's a 2-run shot, so it goes from 6-1 Red Sox to 6-3. On the flip side, talking about a different Garrett, I'm going to be honest, Whitlock's been kind of scuffling a bit lately. Obviously, it took him until the Rangers series to finally give up a run this season, but he hasn't had his best stuff lately. Yes, he's not been giving up too many runs since that incident, but he's been walking some people, and I'm not really too thrilled with what I've seen from him lately.
Yeah, I've got to agree too. I think we're just, I don't know if we're seeing like who he truly is as a pitcher, but
do you think he was overachieving?
I think so, honestly. And I'm trying to remember what teams that they were playing when he was in, if they were like bad teams or anything, but I don't know. I just think it's like, I don't know with the whole Garrett Whitlock situation, but he has definitely been struggling lately, so I don't know how to feel about that, honestly.
It's something to keep our eyes on, because at the end of the day, the only stat that I think I care about as a fan, the stat that I care about the most is not giving up any runs, which I keep calling him Richards, Whitlock is doing a solid job of doing out of the pen. But it seems like he's just walking people more. His stuff isn't the best if you watch the games, to all the people watching this podcast. So it's something to monitor. I'm not willing to, pull the fire alarm or whatever on this situation, but we'll see what happens. I think this is just another situation where you can't expect people to be perfect all the way through. I mean, we saw with Matt Barnes against the Angels, like they're going to scuffle at points, but it's just how they rebound after one bad outing is what really defines what kind of pitcher they can be. So after that, top of the eighth, Vasquez ends up giving us a little bit more breathing room as he hits a solo shot to deep left center, making it 7-3 Red Sox. And then, what do you know? Josh Taylor of the Red Sox closes it out in the ninth. So the Red Sox win 7-3, and they even this series at 1 game apiece. So
yeah,
our bats do the job, and we're able to get it done.
Yeah, to talk about Taylor too, he's actually starting to impress, I think.
I was just going to talk about that.
Yeah, reference back to the Jared Carabas pitchers I trust, don't trust thing that we kind of have been, referencing and talking about, people we trust and don't trust. I don't know how you feel too about Taylor, but Taylor's actually looking like a solid bullpen guy that can maybe give you an inning or two, and that's actually really encouraging. So I'm glad. And we'll talk about some other guys in the Phillies series that kind of stepped up out of the pen. But I've been kind of impressed with Taylor lately. I'm not going to lie. I coming into the year didn't think much of him because he just I believe he's on a I believe he was there last year, right?
He was, yeah.
Yeah. So not a great year for him last year, and he kind of started off the year struggling a bit, but he's turning a corner, and it's honestly good to see because we need guys to produce out of the pen. So. Yeah.
I'm starting to trust him more than some of our other relievers. Like Andrews, I'm kind of indifferent on. He's okay. He's like the textbook definition of like subpar or below average. Valdez and Darwin Hernandez, they're kind of hot and cold, but Taylor's just been really consistent lately. And I mean, I can't believe I'm about to say this, but he's actually kind of getting a little good. Becoming a good pitcher of sorts.
Whoa.
So hopefully he can keep it going because we need all the reliable arms we can get in the pen. I would say starting pitching has been a decent reason for our success this season, but the bullpen is just really erratic, and this is kind of the X factor of the team, as we talked about, where you don't know whether our bullpen is going to be able to put together a great outing or if they're going to struggle. So it's just good to see Josh Taylor taking advantage of the moment. But after that, we head into Game 3 of the series. It's the rubber match. Nick Pivetta versus Steven Matz of the Blue Jays now. He was a pitcher for the Mets for a while. And bottom of the first, Boba Fett doubles all over Renfroe's glove off the right field wall. The wind ended up taking it a bit, which the wind was a big part of these two series against the Blue Jays and Phillies. I don't know if you noticed that, but...
Yeah, wind was strong when they were down in Tampa, definitely playing the Jays.
Yeah, it took some balls, knocked some balls down. Also, the sun was a big deal, too. Verdugo had a tough time in left tracking down some balls in Toronto when we faced them.
Yeah.
So just the weather and Mother Nature impacting circumstances in the game of baseball. But Vladdy is able to drive home Boba Fett with a wall ball double to left, making it 1-0 Toronto already in the first. And as I just said, the sun had an early game, or was a factor early in the game, as Grichuk hits one over Verdugo's head. Vladdy scores. Randall ends up getting a double out of this, making it 2-0 Toronto. And then top second, Vasquez and Renfroe get back-to-back singles. And then Bobby Dahlbeck continues to heat up from the plate, or at the plate. 3-run homer off of the right field pole, and just like that, with one swing of the bat, the Red Sox go from being down 2-0 to up 3-2.
Mm-hmm.
Dahlbeck's starting to heat up. Are we jumping on this hype train too? Because he now has 4 homers in probably I think 10, 12 days or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So are you buying into this whole Bobby's come to play now and
I'm 50% there. I think I'm starting to definitely buy into it, but I'm not fully sold yet. But it is great to see moments like this. This was definitely a moment where I said, okay, maybe Dahlbeck's turning it. So I'm not fully, in on the idea of Dahlbeck being there he is yet, but I think we're getting there with him, and I think he's definitely showing improvement. Especially with hitting deep, which is something we expected because he did so good last year and in spring training with deep hitting deep and just producing. So help the team out like that. That was definitely a key moment in this game. So yeah, I think Dahlbeck's again like a wait and see kind of thing for me. Like a lot of guys have been this year so far, but it's looking good, and that's good because you want Dahlbeck to produce, and I'd much rather have him than Franchi at that 9 spot personally at this point. So yeah,
The thing with Dahlbeck is I need more from him from the plate, meaning I need him to get on base more because it seems like he just hits these homers and like that's all he does for a couple of games. Like he'll go 1 for 4 and then 0 for 3 the next game. I need him to get on base more, make more contact. I don't care if it's a single or a double. Like I'm loving the fact that he's hitting for power now because it's a long time coming. It's about time this season, but I need more from him. Like just making contact with the ball. So if he can start to do that, then I'll fully take stock in Bobby D, as the saying in this podcast goes. But after that, Chavis, still in the same inning, I believe. Let me just check this. I think this is a big inning. Yeah, so a big second inning for the Red Sox. We already put 3 on the board after the Bobby homer, but still in the second, Chavis hits a wall ball double to right, and then Kike singles off the third baseman Espinal's glove, so Chavis is able to score. It's 4-2 Red Sox now. Then JD Martinez singles to left to score Kike, so it's 5-2 Boston. And what stood out to me here is that the Red Sox got 7 straight hits with 2 outs in the inning. That's as impressive as it gets.
that was awesome. I thought for sure when it was at the 2 outs, somebody was gonna strike out, be the one to end the streak, but it just felt like it kept going. So that was great.
And that was a sign of things to come. That's as foreshadowing as it gets for this game as to what was going to happen in the 9th. Just jumping ahead a bit, but this group of guys is just really resilient this year.
Absolutely.
2 outs, 2-out offense, scoring 5 runs. That's remarkable. You don't see that a lot. But moving ahead, bottom of the second inning, Marcus Semien hits a bloop single, and Bichette doubles to deep right. So Semien scores all the way from first, making it 5-3 Boston. Then if we skip ahead to the bottom of the 5th, Vladdy singles to right to move Semien from first to third. Hernandez does a grounder that eats up Devers again. So Devers, with a couple struggling plays at third, but again, it's hard to blame him on these hard hit balls or these tough hit balls, but he can't corral it. So that scores Semien from third, who is running on contact, making it 5-4 Red Sox. And then against the shifts, Biggio singles to left center because there was a hole in the shortstop position because we put the shift on to the right side when Biggio was up to the plate. Vladdy scores from third, making it 5-5, so it's all tied up now. And then that would do it for Pivetta after 5 innings. So what were your thoughts on how Pivetta did tonight or in this game? This obviously wasn't a strong start for him. 7 hits, 4 earned runs, 2 walks. He did have 8 strikeouts, but this is probably, for I'd say maybe the 3rd or the 4th time this year where Pivetta kind of struggled.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the 8 strikeouts was good. I think he was in that aspect of the game, he was good. But yeah, 5 innings wasn't necessarily ideal, considering this was a pretty back and forth game. To trust the bullpen for the remainder, that was obviously the job was done, but not necessarily what you want in a close game against a good team. Yeah, I think the hits too was a bit of a problem. I agree. Not a great outing from Pivetta. I do think the 8 strikeouts is pretty solid, but outside of that, I'd say the game was just kind of average for him. So definitely not the worst we could have seen, but definitely not the best either.
And it's like a tough game. When those are offensive shootouts, it's really hard to blame the pitchers. And I think it's more so you just have to tip your cap to the hitters because at this point it's 5-5, already 10 runs on the board. But I think it's more so just a situation where the Red Sox and the Jays are just really hitting the ball well. And these weren't necessarily bad pitches. Like it's not like they were hanging a curveball in the zone. It was just, hitters taking advantage of pitches and hitting them and getting on base for it. So, average to below average outing for Pivetta. And then bottom of the 6th, in relief of Nick, Sawamura comes in the tie game. So what are your thoughts on a situation like this where we have Sawamura come in these clutch situations? Obviously, he's been struggling a little bit in this month of May. What do you think about that? I don't know who else was available for the Sox out of the pen in this game, but do you do you have faith in Sawamura to do well in these clutch situations?
Somewhat, I'll say. And we've talked about him a lot, but I'd say more so than Ottavino. And there's a few other guys that I'm not necessarily sure if I'd want to put them in with this kind of situation. But yeah, I was a little bit nervous because I know Sawamura has been struggling lately. But I mean, I'm somewhat confident in his ability to kind of keep things close.
So Jansen hits a leadoff triple after Kike Hernandez's dive attempt falls short. This is all in the bottom of the sixth. And one batter later, Jonathan Davis drives in Jansen with an RBI single to left, making it 6-5 Blue Jays now. And then Teoscar Hernandez hits one to Bogarts, who makes a diving play, but he flips it to Chavis at second for the force out, but Chavis can't keep it in his glove, so the bases end up getting loaded. And then Grichuk hits a blooper to third. That scores Davis. 7-5 Blue Jays now. So not a good outing for Sawamura, but it's hard to blame him because Chavis wasn't able to corral the ball at second. But it's just he's really been scuffling since that Texas series. And I don't know. I get it. We don't have many options out of the pen, but we got to clean this stuff up because our starting pitching is already so-so as it gets. And if our starting pitching is not doing well and then our bullpen, we can't rely on them. So it's hard to win games when, starters are struggling and then you have to rely on the pen earlier than you want.
Right. Yeah.
So that was that. Valdez came in, thankfully, and got a clean eighth inning. He ends up getting a double play to get us out of it. Then top of the ninth, Red Sox are down 7-5. And do you want to explain how the top of the ninth inning for this game went for the boys of summer from Boston?
Trying to remember. I mean, I remember obviously the final act of this inning. I'm trying to remember the rest. It was one of those 2-out.
So
right?
So Dahlbeck and Chavis got back-to-back singles to start the inning. Verdugo grounded out to make it second and third. So it's second and third, and the Red Sox are down to their last two strikes and also their last out. And what does JD Martinez do?
That's right. JD Martinez hits a home run, brings in Dahlbeck, brings in Chavis, brings in himself, and that's the game. Pretty much. I mean, it's actually it was the top of the ninth at that point, but
so yeah, top of the ninth, down to our last two strikes, as we just said. JD Martinez hits one to deep right center, 3-run shot, gives the Red Sox the lead 8-7. And this was huge, and this was a bit of a redemption moment for JD because the at-bat before he struck out, and he was really mad at the umpire because he thought the pitch was out of the zone.
Right.
And he ended up, I thought he might have gotten ejected. And obviously, if he gets ejected, we probably go on to lose this game because he won't be in a position to hit a homer like this. But, we take the lead in the top of the ninth. Barnes takes care of business with Toronto in the bottom of the ninth. And the Red Sox win 8-7 in stunning fashion. And we take the series in the 11th hour, which is just fascinating. It's fantastic. We were able to take 2 of 3 when we really should have lost 2 of 3. And we're able to steal a series from Toronto.
Yeah, definitely great. And referencing back to that JD Martinez clutch moment too, it almost reminded me back of that Rays series.
I was just going to say.
Lost that game, and he had the walk-off there, and that helped them win that. I believe that was the first game or second game of that series, but I think that was the first podcast we did. That was like almost 2 months ago, but that was this was definitely like a 2.0 moment for that. And I've definitely got to say too, I'm really glad JD is able to produce moments like this because last year I just don't think he would have done that. He's definitely been huge when he needs to be, and yeah, this was a huge moment for JD. So, and for that team too.
And this was huge also in the sense that if we lose, we're going to be tied with the Rays for first.
Right.
So for us to come from behind and take a victory from the snatch a victory from the hands of the Blue Jays, I mean, you can't ask for anything better than that. And it's just another clutch victory and another come from behind victory for this team and a series of them that we've had this season. I think of our 28 wins, I want to say like 15 or 16 of them are come from behind, which is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Do you think this was the best win of the year for the Red Sox? Because as you said, I put this or probably the most fun comeback win. I'd put this right with the Rays win that you just talked about.
Yeah.
Those probably go hand in hand.
Yeah, same, honestly. I think, this win, the Rays win, and I think
The Orioles had I'm kind of biased, but the Orioles, when we beat the Orioles on my birthday, actually, April 11th, that was a fun one. That was the game where Martinez homered 3 times, Devers homered twice.
no,
Dugo had one.
I think that was probably the three. Those were probably the 3 best. The Rays game with the JD walk-off, the JD 3 homers, the Devers 2, Verdugo 1, the 3-2-1 game in Baltimore, and then this game. I'd also say another game too. When they got to Giolito early against the White Sox, I think they had
Patriots Day.
Yeah, Patriots Day. That Patriots Day massacre. Oh,
you're good.
Sorry, I didn't think of that. I don't mean to be joking. That's you know what I mean. But the 8-run work against Giolito, that was a fun game too, because like we did not, and I know on that podcast too, because I was in quarantine too, so it's like, all right, something fun. It was like they went out there and they just, I think it was 8 runs in that first inning, and it was just, I have no idea how Giolito collapsed that hard. And the White Sox they struggled a bit against the Yankees this past series, but they've been pretty solid since then. So to beat their ace at that point in the season where they were still finding their footing, that was a really fun win too. But this one definitely was up there for sure. Probably second best.
It was fun, and it was an important victory for the team.
Right.
Who were your players of the series for the Red Sox?
I'm gonna give my player, my first player of the series, I'm gonna give to Kike Hernandez, just because he returned from injury and did pretty solid. All things considered, we talked a bit about him. I just like having him at leadoff. That's always helpful. And I'll give the second. I'll say JD. Obviously for that clutch moment there. Just solid. That was just such a solid moment that I think that was such a key moment in that game and deciding that game that I just have to give it to JD there. And then in terms of pitching, considering Pivetta and Erod was bad and Pivetta was pretty mad, I'm gonna have to give it to Garrett Richards. I think I gave it to him in either the A's or the Angels recap. One of those 2 recaps that we did, the last 2 that we did, I think I gave it to him in one of those too. So Garrett Richards actually gets my pitching, and then the relief. I don't know who I'd give it to honestly, I don't know out of the pen. I'd say Josh Taylor, actually, just because he's actually showing himself to be a solid potentially option there. So I'll give it to Taylor out of the pen.
For my Red Sox players, I had JD. He was really on a tear this series and obviously saved us in that final game. Just really good to see him. Couple homers, making lots of contact, good base hits, lots of RBIs. Bobby Dahlback also with the home run. He's kind of starting to turn a corner. You know what he can do at first. He's a serviceable defensive first baseman. But to see him just hit the ball well is also good. Kike Hernandez, as you said, coming back from injury, having a home or 2. I think he had a 3 or 2 hit game as well. So you love to see that. And then for pitching, I also had Garrett Richards. I think we've both given this award to him like a handful of times now, which is something I did not think that we would be doing after his horrendous start on Easter Sunday. But here we are.
Yep.
So how about for the Blue Jays?
I think I'm going to give my first, I'm going to give probably to Vlad Guerrero Jr., just because he's one of my favorite players to watch right now in baseball. He's a really exciting player. He had a couple solid games too. I feel like he was on base a lot, which was clutch for them. I feel like he also scored a lot of runs for them when needed. So smart base running, decent hitting and whatnot, solid work defensively. And I think for 2, I think I'll give it to Randall Grichuk as well. Did I say his last name wrong? I always say it.
I think that's how it's pronounced.
Yeah, so I'll give my second to him because also too with hits and whatnot, I feel like when we recap the series and when you look back at the series, his name was brought up a lot. I feel like he drove in quite a few runs. He was also on plate a lot, pretty decent defensively as well. So I definitely would say he's probably the second pick. And then for pitching, I'd give it to Ryu because I think he had an excellent outing that first game, really shut down the Sox, and that's to be expected because he's one of the best pitchers, honestly, in the AL if you really look at it. And I think last year he struggled a little bit. A lot of guys did because it was a shortened season, but if you look back at the year before that, he was really dominant, and he's actually off to a pretty good start this year. And I also think this is a good game for him because that first game where the Blue Jays got beaten by the Sox in that 2-game series back in late April, he really struggled. The Sox were really able to get to him. So the fact that he was able to shut down such a good offense and their entire pitching staff for that game alone was able to shut down the Red Sox offense. That's crazy. I don't think the Red Sox have been shut out. Was this the first shutout of the year or since that Blue Jays series or something? Because I feel like they score at least a run every game.
This has got to be maybe the second or the third time because we got shut out on opening day against Means. That was like 4-0, 5-0, something like that. I think. Did we? I think we did on opening day.
They did, yeah. They did that one game. I don't know if they have since then, but
right. It's got to be at least no more than a handful of times, and that's super impressive.
Yep.
So, for me, for the Blue Jays players of the series, I had Grichuk, number one. Yeah, I think he had a hit at least all 3 of the games, and I think he had a double, a homer, just hitting the ball really well, getting a lot of RBIs. Vladdy, much of the same. Just good to see him getting on base. He's one of the more exciting young players in baseball. Obviously, his dad was an amazing player, and was the number 1 prospect in all of baseball just a few years ago, and he's become an excellent base MLB player. Bo Bichette or Boba Fett, I think I gave him it last time, but he had another good series. Teoscar Hernandez, Marcus Semien. Semien obviously had the error rounding third and then changed his mind and running in and out, but they all found ways to get on base or score runs. So I just thought a good series from all those players offensively. There's obviously a reason why I have more Blue Jays players of the series than the Red Sox is because, as I said, I think we're very lucky that we were able to come out winning 2 or 3 from the series. So because Toronto played really well. And then for their pitcher, Ryu, just fantastic. 7 innings, only gave up 4 hits, no earned runs and no walks, 7 strikeouts. I've been a fan of his since his Dodgers days, and he's carrying that over to Toronto. So hats off to him. He destroyed us in that game 1. So that is it for the Blue Jays. Now we will go on to the Phillies series that just wrapped up yesterday. So I feel like we're starting a podcast again, but what were your general takeaways from that series?
This was a pretty good series. We're so far in at this point. I guess I'll just bury the lead.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, okay. So game 3 was really rough yesterday, and I think there's a few things behind that we can talk about. I think it involves the rotation and some guys being out, and also the starting pitcher continuing struggles. Obviously, that was Erod. But the first 2 games of the series were really solid. I feel like that the second game was a really nail-biting, close, fun game. It was on Fox.
#fun.
Yeah, #fun. And it was on Fox, so the whole nation gets to see the Red Sox. We are good. We like to bang. Shout out Kike. And the first game was, I believe the first game was that blowout. The first game was a complete blowout. So it was a pretty fun series, pretty good series against a team that's kind of on the fence of 500. They've got some solid hitters. They're not the best team, but they're not a bad team at all. So it's good to take 2 of 3 on the road. And the Sox schedule continues to get tougher the next few series. So this was a good continuation from the last series, and they hung in there. And I think it was just a solid series. I feel like definitely enjoyable to watch. Kind of reminded me a little bit of the Angels series too. So from last weekend. So
yeah, I think this is probably the epitome of Red Sox baseball in one series where we win a game due to our bats, then we win another game in a little bit of a nail-biting fashion, but the back end of our bullpen is able to save us, i.e. Matt Barnes. And then, what is it, the third game, we, it seems like a typical thing in a 3-game set with the Red Sox, at least as of late, where of a 3-game set, we usually have one off game, but we end up taking the series. And that's what happened here. I mean, you want to go for these sweeps, but as we both said all year, we don't care if we just win 2 or 3. As long as we take the series, that's a big accomplishment.
For sure.
It's hard to sweep a team in baseball. It really is.
Exactly. Especially, too, when you're playing pretty solid teams. Like the Phillies and Blue Jays are teams that are, playoff-level teams. So, to take 2 or 3 from teams like that, I mean, that's what you want, ideally. So,
for sure. And game 1, the pitching matchup was Martin Perez versus Aaron Nola. Nola has always been a reliable arm for the Phillies, but his ERA has been kind of up there this year, and he's been struggling a bit. But top of the first, JD singles to center to make it first and third on a hit and run, which, talking about the hit and run for a second, do you like when the Red Sox do stuff like that when they are active on the base paths? Because I think that's important. And I mean, we have people that can run. Obviously, Verdugo can run a bit. I feel like you could send someone like a Renfroe or a Bogarts or even a Devers. So I don't mind it if you want to do a hit and run. I think it helps.
I think it's helpful too. Yeah, definitely.
So hit and run executed to perfection there. And then Bogarts grounds out to first to score Alex Verdugo. So Red Sox jump on the board early to make it 1-0 Red Sox. And then Raffy doubles off the top of the left field fence. He just misses a homer. This is kind of a theme, like an underlying theme of the series against the Phillies, where a lot of Red Sox players just missed homers because of that short fence and left. And it happened right here. So Raffy had to settle for a double. JD scores, making it 2-0 Red Sox. And then top of the second, skipping ahead a bit, why don't I give you the floor to talk about Martin Perez swinging the bat?
Wow, that was Martin Perez. And obviously, it's expected, because, we're playing an NL team here. Pitchers got to hit. And a lot of the time, pitchers really struggle to hit. Even on some NL clubs, there's pitchers that don't hit well or struggle at the plate. But Martin Perez's attempt here was just laughably bad. Basically, he swung down by his knees, almost like a golf swing, but the ball shimmied. It was just one of the most visually awkward things I've seen in a while. And Perez actually had a pretty solid game, so not to take that, pretty solid start from him away, but this was a really comedic moment. I'm sure Perez himself probably laughed watching that back because he's a pretty comedic guy, but that was just I saw the replay of that. I saw it and I was like, I gotta watch this over again. And I kept seeing it on Twitter. I was like, this is hilarious. It was so awkward. And I always just chuckle when I see pitchers hitting too. It was the same thing with Evaldi, where just seeing him come in for the run in game 2, just because he's so lanky. These guys builds. It's just, I don't know what it is, but I just chuckle when I see it. It's like at the end of the podcast with the tell us what you like, dislike thing. That's how I feel about pitchers hitting. So
it was because, if I'm not mistaken, he swung and missed, but that pitch also hit him. I want to say, and it hit him in an area which I will not disclose for family-friendly purposes. But you want to talk about insult to injury, that hit Perez in a bad area. His teammates are laughing at him and giving him a hard time, and he looks like a fool at the plate.
That was definitely a highlight for the wrong reasons. So.
Do you think it's a waste of time to have pitchers hit? I don't see, if it's interleague play and if it's American League versus National League, I think you should just let it be a designated hitter game. Even if you're playing in the National League, like in Philly. I could stand for, if it's National League versus National League play, let the pitchers hit still. But I don't need to see, let me random pitcher Erod hit or whatever, swing the bat. What's that going to do? That's just an automatic out most of the time.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't really like it that much either for the same reasons. And also, too, it I don't want to say it's a disadvantage for the AL team. The visiting opponent, or even if it's a home opponent, it's just I feel like it's almost I don't know, it's kind of it just evens the playing field a little more if you have the DH, I think, and it prevents more awkward moments like that too. Because just most of the time, pitchers really can't hit, and most of the time they even struggle to get on base, which is normal. So unless it's a 20, then obviously he knows what to do. But outside of Shohei, like I don't really know a lot of people who are.
Bumgarner also can hit it, kind of.
Yeah,
That's the only other one. Kershaw, somewhat.
Yeah. Kershaw's okay at the plate. I think. Never mind. I thought I was thinking of somebody, but no, they don't hit well. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna keep pitchers hitting in the league, maybe just make it a rule for everyone, or just completely abolish it, because it just puts you at a disadvantage if, like situations like this, where the Red Sox come to town in Philadelphia to play. It's an automatic out, so it already benefits the National League because
right.
Erod, Garrett Richards, Evaldi, whoever they don't know how to hit. So if you're gonna keep that rule, make it universal or just ban it universally and just have a universal DH. So that's my thoughts on that. Bottom of the second, though, Bogarts had a nice diving play in the shift to steal from Odubel Herrera. He was all the way over towards second, so nice play from him. Skipping ahead to bottom of the third, McCutcheon doubles right center just past the diving effort of Verdugo in center. And Segura ends up homering to deep left center, very next batter. Just like that, with one swing of the bat, it is tied at 2. And then bottom of the fourth inning, Danny Santana, making his Red Sox debut, makes a nice defensive play at first as he doubles up Bohm, who lined it right to him at first, and then he was able to touch first base. So very nice snag by Danny Santana at first, and just excellent for him to have the awareness to tag the base and double up Bohm and get 2 outs on the board there. And I just had another side point that it's great that the Red Sox are bringing in people who can play not only multiple defensive positions, but can play them at a high level.
Exactly. That's always key. I mean, Marwin's the same way. I know
Kike
as well, yep.
Verdugo can play all the outfield positions. Dahlback can play both of the corners. It's good to see Chavis. I forgot about him. He can play the infield and the outfield. And then top of the fifth inning, after just making a fantastic play in the last half inning, Danny Santana, in his Red Sox debut, hits a rocket to right field, making it 3-2 Red Sox, giving us the lead again. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. Like in his debut, he hit 30 homers for the Rangers a couple years ago. Red Sox signed Danny Santana to a minor league deal, give him some at-bats down in Worcester, call him up, and right away he answers the bell.
Yep, definitely. Definitely key. Glad he did well, too. Just great game, honestly.
This might go down as a really underrated signing, honestly. I mean,
sure. Yeah.
If he continues to play like this because he had a great series, we might have found a diamond in the rough. I mean, 2 years ago, it's a long time in baseball, but it also isn't, considering how short 2020 was, the season. So you look at it, I would say you could even count it as like a year and a half ago. He just hit 30 homers for the Rangers, and he's still showing that pop with us. Later in the inning, Bogart singles to left, Verdugo scores, so the Red Sox are not done yet. And then they got JD in a pickle between second and third, but the infielder, I believe it was the second baseman for the Phillies, ends up dropping the ball in the pickle. So JD scores. Bogarts gets all the way to third after initially getting the hit on the play. He hops over the shortstop. And after all that, it goes from 3-2 Red Sox to 5-2 Red Sox. So once again, the Red Sox are not the team with a defensive miscue, but we're taking advantage of it. And that's all you can really do. Top of the sixth inning, Vasquez misses a homer just off of the left field fence. Turns into a leadoff double. Both him and Devers hit one on that same somewhat fence, and it was very close, like inches away to being a homer, but they just missed it. Renfroe singles to left to bring in Vasquez, making it 6-2 Boston. Bottom of the sixth, Bohm singles to left just in front of a sliding JD. Segura scores, making it 6-3 Red Sox now. Then top of the seventh, Devers hits one out this time. He crushes one to right field. It's a 2-run homer with 2 outs, so the 2-out offense is just in effect again. Because Kike Hernandez was also on base, it's a 2-run shot. So it makes it 8-3 Red Sox now. Top of the ninth, bases loaded, and then Vasquez ends up getting a bases clearing double to score Martinez, Bogey, and Devers, make it 11-3 Red Sox. So just adding on to the pounding, this was a ball that you could have made an argument that Bryce Harper should have caught. The wing kind of took it, and he took a weird route to the ball, but it ends up falling.
Yep.
Vasquez clears the bases, as I just said, making it 11-3 Red Sox, and then Darwin Hernandez closes it out in the bottom of the ninth. Sox win 11-3 and take game one. I mean, that's just a great game offensively, and that was as great as it gets, seeing both Martinez, Bogey, and Devers all get on base, and then Vasquez able to clear the bases with a hit. I mean, that's what you love to see out of the offense, the heart of the order, getting on base, and then all of them getting the score.
Yep.
So game two, pitching matchup is or actually, let's take a quick second to talk about how Perez pitched in this game. You want to take that away?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the exact stat line, but he had a pretty solid outing.
I'll give it. So 6 innings, 5 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, and 7 strikeouts.
Pretty decent inning. Kind of like how he pitched previously. I believe that was the Angels.
Yep.
Series. He pitched pretty solid in that appearance. So yeah, another pretty decent start from Martin Perez. I don't know if I want to say he's turning around as much as Garrett Richards has, but Perez has definitely produced as the 5 guy more so in the last few starts than I thought he would have. And he hung in there. Obviously, he had that embarrassing at the plate moment, but again, that's not normal. So outside of that, pretty decent Perez day. I mean, he did what he needed to do. Didn't really have a horrible game. He just kind of hung in there. Just typical Perez stats: couple hits, couple earned runs, walk, and then 5-ish to 7-ish strikeouts. So 7, that's on the higher end for him, but typically. But yeah, not an awful start. So definitely from a 5 guy, that's really ideally what you want, and especially in a blowout win. I mean, that's reflects pretty good on him. So,
and it's just important to me and probably to you as well, and to all of Red Sox Nation, that he's going 6 innings, because it's great to see him go deep in the starts. He's had some starts this year where he's only gone like 4 or 5 innings. So for him to take to the 6th inning, I'm fine with that. Again, he's our 5 starter, I believe. Yeah, he is our 5 starter. So not much more you can ask for. Just nothing amazing, but nothing great. Other pitchers on the Sox, Garrett Whitlock went 1 2/3 innings, gave up 1 hit, 2 walks, and 2 strikeouts. I mean, that's not bad in 1 2/3 innings of relief. Obviously, I would rather him, cut down on the walks, but, not too bad. And then Josh Taylor had a third of an inning, and he got a strikeout. Then obviously Darwin, as I said, closed it out. 1 inning, only gave up 1 walk, and had 3 strikeouts. So not a bad day for the Red Sox bullpen.
Yep.
And game 2, pitching matchup was Nathan Eovaldi versus Spencer Howard. This is their top prospect for the Phillies. It was his first start this season, but his 7th career start. And top of the 3rd, Howard already has 5 Ks in 3 innings, and there was first and second with 1 out because Eovaldi took a walk. You talked about it earlier, Eovaldi batting, and somehow, some way, he was able to take a walk. You don't see pitchers walking the other pitcher that much, but Devers hits one to right. Bryce Harper can't keep it in his glove. He made a nice diving effort, but it falls out of his glove. So Eovaldi, chugging and puffing and chugging his way around third, is able to score. Kike goes to third, 1-0 Red Sox, and then there's bases loaded now in the inning. Bogarts hits a sac fly to left to score Kike from third, making it 2-0 Red Sox. And that would be the scoring for a bit. And then in the top of the 4th inning, Howard was done after only throwing 68 pitches. Were you kind of surprised by this? Because he had a decent outing for the Phillies.
Yeah, I think Howard, the biggest thing with him was that inning where he loaded the bases and everything and he walked Eovaldi. There was a stretch in that particular inning where he was throwing these really wild pitches. I think he definitely gained more control after that. So I kind of get why they pulled him. I'm really surprised, to be honest, watching that game, that he didn't give up more runs, because some of the pitches he was throwing were, say the batter's box is like this. The pitches he was throwing were like out there. Some of them were so wide, it was like the Dr. Fauci pitch. Like there were some really bad pitches. I think he hit two people. I think he might have hit Kike. I'm not positive. I'm trying to remember who he hit, but I think he hit two Red Sox. I don't think it was the same inning, but he definitely was able to control. And I do think he controlled himself a little bit better. And the fact that he was again able to get out of that inning with 2 runs was, in my opinion, kind of impressive. But some of the pitches he was throwing, especially with that Evaldi at bat and stuff, he was almost like giving free walks. Like there were a couple guys at bat where I don't think he threw a single strike. I think it was just 4 balls walk for I think 2 batters or so. So I do think he was pulled a little bit early. I think because the game, he honestly hadn't given up as many runs as he should have. So I'm a little bit surprised they did pull him after 68. I would have thought they would have kept him just a little more. And if he really struggled again, they would pull him. But yeah, so yeah, he was okay. But some of the pitches he was throwing were really, really concerning.
So he went 3+ innings, 1 hit, 2 earned runs, but he did have the 4 walks and also had 5 strikeouts. So an up and down outing for him, but 4 walks and 3+ innings is really alarming. So right. I guess that makes more sense as to why they pulled him. And then bottom of the 4th inning, Miller triples down the right field line, and Odubel Herrera hits a sac fly to Santana in center. So this is another reason why I love the Santana move, is because not only can he play a position like first, but we can also put him in the outfield. So it's just versatility is key on this Red Sox team, and we love to see it. Right. He catches the sac fly from Herrera. Miller scores from third, making it 2-1 Red Sox. And then top of the 6th, Bogaerts leads off with a solo shot to right field, making it 3-1 Boston as we get a little insurance. And then Danny Santana goes back-to-back with Bogaerts as he hits one that was a pitch that was nearly in the dirt into the deep left seats, making it 4-1 Red Sox. So his second straight night, second homer in as many games. Love to see it. And the great thing was that both of these homers by Bogaerts and Santana were opposite field shots. I mean, it's amazing how effective this offense is.
Yeah, that opposite field hitting is so key this year. That's been just a huge plus for the offense. Absolutely.
And that just speaks to the resiliency, because even if we're late to hit the ball, we're still able to get hits out of it. I mean, Martinez has had a ton of homers that have seen the gone to the opposite field. Obviously, I think Devers too. Mm-hmm. He had one in the Monster, I think, at the Angels series. So you love to see it. And then obviously it was on display here with Bogaerts and Santana. So the Red Sox go 4-1, and then bottom of the 6th, Hoskins takes Evaldi deep to left, so now it's 4-2 Boston. Evaldi is done after 5 2/3 innings, and this was the first home run Nate has given up all season after 68+ innings of work. That's as impressive as it gets, too.
Yeah, that's pretty good considering they've faced some really good offenses since then. So
Evaldi's day is done. He put together a solid start. 5 1/3, 5 hits, 2 earned runs, 2 walks, and 4 strikeouts. Not close to his best stuff, but pretty solid. And he put us in a good position to win. Top of the 7th, Ronnie Torreyes actually takes a hit away from JD with a nice diving effort at short. And then bottom of the 7th, Feliz Valdez comes in, and he struggles. He ends up loading the bases. So Darwin Hernandez has to come in and get the last 2 outs of the inning. And he does just that. He strikes out Harper and Haskins. He struck out Harper to get 2 outs. And then he hits Hoskins on the Phillies. So a run is forced in due to the bases being loaded, making it 4-3 Boston now. But then Darwin is able to strike out Brad Miller to get out of the bases loaded jam, only giving up 1 run that was charged to Valdez. So what do you think about Feliz Valdez? Because he's been pretty hot and cold this year.
Yeah, he's kind of like Ottavino a little bit, honestly. Yeah, he did pretty decent in that Blue Jays series. But yeah, this was rough. Yeah, I remember being really nervous when he was just loading the bases like that. I'm like, this is not ideal at all. And even when Darwin came in too, I was like, ooh, I don't know about this, because I know he's kind of inconsistent as well, like a lot of the guys in the pen. So yeah, especially too, that hit on Hoskins was a little bit concerning, because obviously you don't want to hit somebody, but the fact that he was able to strike out Harper and Miller was definitely helpful. Very, very key moment in this game. So But yeah, I'm a little bit worried about Valdez. Honestly, but I think he's in a similar boat to guys like Sawamura and Ottavino, where some nights they'll be pretty hot and some nights they'll be pretty cold, like you said. So I don't know. It's kind of tough sometimes to watch, and sometimes it's really easy to watch because they're 1, 2, 3 or better. So
Yeah, this was not a good series for Valdez. Spoiler alert, bury the lead, whatever you want to call it.
yeah,
He's struggling in his couple outings, but in the eighth inning, our good friend Adam Ottavino comes in to try and preserve the Red Sox 1-run lead. And how did he do?
well, from what I remember,
Well done.
yeah, well done. I think did he have a 1, 2, 3 inning?
He did. So, and the fantastic thing is, he struck out the whole side.
Yeah,
He got 3
that
strikeouts.
right there, again, hot and cold. We just talked about Valdez. That Ottavino inning was like flawless. Like we always clown Ottavino. This is the first time I think we can both agree that this was like one of the best relief innings probably of the season. I mean, this was key. Like 3 straight. Like wow.
I gave him
crazy.
the nickname Automatic Ottavino, and he was literally automatic in that inning. 3 strikeouts, struck out the side, preserves a 1-run lead. I mean, did Jesus Christ come back to earth? I mean,
no, and the crazy thing is we talked about this on the podcast, outside of the podcast too, with Ottavino. Why does Cora keep putting him in with the 1-run situations? I literally took a picture of my TV. I remember I sent you a text. I'm like, what is Cora doing? And then he gets the 1, 2, 3 inning. I'm like, this is crazy. Like Ottavino, like that was an amazing inning from him. So, regardless of all the slant, all the hashtag Ottavino slander we've done on this, like the TikTok kids, we've slandered Ottavino plenty in the last 2.5 months around that. But this was excellent. So
he's finally been given the keys to the car again. He's not grounded anymore. As that guy says on TikTok, y'all rocking with Ottavino, that account. You see that in like all the comments. That's like, oh, y'all rocking with this TikToker. Y'all rocking with Ottavino. I'm rocking with him at the moment. We'll see how I feel in a week. But anyways, bottom of the ninth, jumping ahead to the end of this game, the Red Sox are still preserving that 1-run lead. Matt Barnes comes in, and he struggled a bit. He put runners on first and second, but he got Harper to ground out into a fielder's choice. Bogarts nearly came off the bag from the Dahlback throw because Harper hit it to first. Dahlback tried to start an inning-ending double play or game-ending double play, so he fired it to second, but his throw was a bit offline at second. But thankfully, Bogarts was able to keep his foot on the bag, so we were able to get 1 out. And with the tying run at third, Barnes gets Hoskins to strike out to end the game. Red Sox win 4-3, and they win the series. But it's a little bit concerning. I don't think we've seen Barnes' best stuff since that blown save against the Angels. Granted, he's closing out games, but he's kind of reminding me of Craig Kimbrell, where he's giving me a heart attack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's definitely a good way to put it, for sure.
So, Game 3, final game of the series that was yesterday. The pitching matchup was Erod versus Zach Wheeler. This was not a fun game for the Red Sox, so I'll already just buried the lead. Bottom of the fourth, Phillies end up getting to, or bottom of the first, sorry. Phillies end up getting to Erod right away. Herrera was on second. Rise Hoskins hits one through the hole in the shift to right, so Herrera scores, making it 1-0 Phillies. And then with first and second on now, Brad Miller hits one off the screen in the opposite field and left. It's a 3-run shot, and it makes it 4-0 Phillies. So Erod's already been attacked for 4 runs in his first inning of work. And it's hard to recover when you're off to that bad of a start. Even with a team like the Red Sox who can score runs in mass amounts at any point in the game, it's disappointing to see Erod struggle this much.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And this too, again, comes after another our previous, probably the worst Sox game of the season. Like we said, one of the worst. And again, going into that whole stock conversation, like I don't know how you feel, but I'm starting to worry about Erod. And again, I don't want to like give him too much of a hard time as a fan, just because I know he went through a lot medically in the last year. And it's pretty tough to get back to how he was. And obviously, in 2019, he had a really good year despite the Sox being pretty mediocre. But I don't know how you feel, but I'm starting to definitely take some concern in Erod's performances, and I'm almost not seeing him as the most reliable guy when at the beginning of the year I did. So I don't know how you feel, but I'm getting a little worried for I was gonna say Evaldi Erod.
And that's a great point where we were really high on him at the beginning of the year because he started off 5-0. He was pitching more consistent than the likes of Evaldi and Pivetta, and now he's just been scuffling the last 3 starts. Obviously, he would go on to lose this game, so he went from 5-0 to 5-3. And it doesn't help, obviously, that the Red Sox haven't done the best at giving him run support in these 3 games, but he also hasn't pitched his best. I really don't know what it is, but it is worrying when any pitcher just has 3 bad starts in a row, and you don't want this to snowball more than it already has. I don't really know what it's doing because I don't know if you remember earlier in his career, but the reason why he struggled when we first called him up is because he was kind of like tipping his pitches or like doing something with his glove, which let the pitchers know which pitch he was going to throw. But he ended up fixing that, so he was able to put together a few good solid seasons. But yeah, his ERA, I think, is got to be in the 4s right now, I want to say. So just really struggling. I mean, again, Erod's like a career like 3.5, 3.8 kind of ERA guy, but his ERA is just continuing to inflate a bit. And I don't really know what the problem is. He's just put together 3 really bad outings in a row. So
yeah.
I'll agree with you on that. That's really concerning.
Yeah, he actually, just to end off the Erod talk too, he actually has a 5.06 ERA this regular season. So that's pretty rough, honestly.
And it's never it's really hard to recover as a pitcher from 3 bad starts in a row. So
yeah.
I don't know. Do you think he's dealing with an injury? Maybe? I don't know. Like, I'm trying to justify it because, again, this isn't me, just fully jumping off the Erod train, but like, if any pitcher has 3 bad starts in a row, it's a cause for concern, but I'm just trying to justify it. So do you think like he could be dealing with an injury maybe?
I think so, yeah. There might be something there, or if not that, there's just some underlying issue.
So moving on from that, it didn't help that the Red Sox had to deal with the woes from Erod, and also Zach Wheeler was on his A game yesterday. He actually retired 15 in a row at one point. I have written down. Yeah, he retired 15 in a row. And then in the bottom of the 4th inning, to add insult to injury, he ends up singling to the opposite field off Erod. So, just don't like to see that. You try and make it so the pitchers are an automatic out, but that's obviously tougher when you're facing a National League team. And they have all these practice in games hitting because they do that on a daily basis. And top of the 5th, Dahlbeck actually got robbed of a homer to deep center by the wind. I don't know if you saw that, but it's just, Red Sox were snake bitten yesterday. Erod was done after 4 innings. Sawamura came in and gave a good inning in relief. He inherited 2 runners, but he got 2 strikeouts. And then do you want to talk about what Franchi Cordero did yesterday?
Franchi Cordero hit an absolute bomb. I remember hearing it was the 3rd hardest hit baseball home run of this year so far, behind Stanton and Ohtani, which are, as we know, anyone that watches baseball, those guys are power hitters. I mean, that's just what they do. So for Franchi Cordero, whose batting average is about like a 170, to hit that kind of bomb, that was an impressive hit for Franchi, especially for somebody who's really struggled behind the plate this year. Yeah, that was crazy. I think it was like a 467 or something foot bomb, but yeah, that was a really nice home run. I mean, it didn't matter a whole lot by this point in the game, but it was still definitely something to talk about. Sure.
Yeah, so Franchi crushed one 474 feet to be exact. It was the first pitch he saw from Wheeler in the inning. The longest home run this year, I think, in baseball is 485 feet, so he got pretty close there. Cora joked after the game. He thought the StatCast was lying to us, and it went even farther. We'll never know, but just great to see Franchi hit a homer. That's his first homer of the year. First homer in a Red Sox uniform. And Wheeler would be done after that. So Wheeler would go 7 1/3 innings. I have his stat line up right here. He only gave up 3 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, and 12 strikeouts. So he really got to us.
That's a great outing.
Excellent outing in tall order against an offense like we have. So just got to tip your cap to something like that when it happens. And so we're only down 4-1 at this point. And Valdez comes in again, and he struggled in the 8th. First and third. Herrera doubled down the left field line. Knapp scores. Joyce goes to third. So now it's 6-1 Philly. Valdez ended up giving up 2 earned runs. So this kind of pretty much puts the game out of reach. I don't really know anyone else who's available in that situation, but would you have gone with another arm there besides Valdez? Because it's a 3-run game. That's still winnable, even though we're down to our last 3 batters or so. So would you have gone to another reliever, maybe like an Andrees or something, if he was available?
So. Yeah, especially considering Valdez was struggling there and had been, I would have just put someone else in.
So Valdez struggles. 6-1 Philly now heading in the 9th, and then in the top of the 9th, Devers hits a solo shot to left field, so it makes it 6-2. We hit 2 homers in the last 2 innings, and I thought this was a little weird. I don't know how to feel about this. Maybe I think I'm reading too much into it, but even though we're losing by 4 in the 9th, Devers hits a homer and they still do the cart celebration. All right. I mean, it's what it is. I guess it's cool of Cora to let them still stay loose and understand, like, you're going to lose games. It's a long baseball season. I don't know how I feel about us doing it when we're losing like by 4 or 5 in the 9th, but keeps things light, keeps things fun. So after that would be the only action in the 9th. Archie Bradley would close the door on the Red Sox, winning the game for Philly. Phillies win 6-2. They get the series salvaging victory, but the Red Sox do take 2 of 3 in this series. The end of this game was weird because it seems like it took forever to end. I mean, I never want the Red Sox to just, wave the white flag and lose, but the Phillies just kept on making defensive miscue after defensive miscue in the 9th, and I'm like, let's just get this game over with. The Red Sox are going to lose. I mean, they had one player where the third baseman overran a foul ball and couldn't catch it. They could have had an game-ending double play on Verdugo, but they airmailed the first baseman. Just an ugly ending defensively for the Phillies, but they end up getting the win. So they're able to leave the ballpark and leave the series happy. And the Red Sox are on to another series against the Braves. But before we get to that, who were your Red Sox players of the series?
I think I give in this series, the players of the series, the first spot I give to Danny Santana, just for stepping up and having 2 home runs in this series, getting on the bag, being versatile in his positions, having good defensive moments. Just a really solid opening series for him, an introduction to this team, and I think he's going to fit really well with this group of guys, especially with a lot of versatile players. And I'll give my second spot. I'll also say Devers. I think Rafael Devers had a pretty solid series. Definitely a couple really nice offensive efforts there, and Devers just always seems to produce. He was pretty solid on that end, and then. For pitching, I'd give it to Eovaldi. The pitching in this series wasn't fantastic. It was pretty average, but Eovaldi pitched pretty well. He was actually able to get a walk and get a run himself, so that was kind of good to see too, considering he's a pitcher. It wasn't like he was just a wasted run, and this was a game where that run was actually needed because it was so close. And then I think for the reliever, I'd give it to Ottavino just for that 1-2-3 inning he had in that situation where it was needed. And I'll give a honorable mention to Darwin, although he had that hit on Hoskins, which I think was kind of not great. He had those 2 strikeouts that were needed, and one of those was Harper, who's obviously an electric player. So that was probably, and I know for him, he was very excited too. So that was a pretty key moment for him. So I guess I'll give him a shout out there too.
So for my Red Sox players of the series, I had Devers, who had a homer, obviously, in the last game. He did a good job of getting on base, multi-hit games, accumulating RBIs. Same with Bogarts. He had a multi-hit game. And, just good to see him hitting the ball well as well. Danny Santana, obviously coming up, getting the call from Worcester, minor league signing during the year, and he answers the call immediately, playing well at both positions with a nice defensive play, then hitting 2 homers that were absolute rockets. So hopefully he can contribute more as the season progresses, whether it be in a starting role or just coming off the bench or whatever. Probably off the bench, but hopefully we give him more appearances. Vasquez missed a homer, but also got a homer, and he had some nice extra base hits, getting a lot of RBIs for him as well. Quietly having a good season, if you ask me, for Vasquez. And for my pitcher, it was close for Eovaldi and Perez for me, but I just gave it to Perez. 6 innings, 5 hits, 3 earned runs, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts. Pretty solid stuff, even though it wasn't needed because the Red Sox got 11 runs in his outing. I mean, you're never going to complain about having a good outing from a pitcher, especially your number 5 guy. So how about for the Phillies?
For the Phillies, I think the 2 players I pick were Riz Hoskins, just because he was able to take it deep off Eovaldi, which is pretty impressive considering Eovaldi hasn't given up any home runs thus far. He also had a few other solid offensive and defensive moments, and was pretty good, just pretty good behind the plate. And then I'd also give it to Jean, is it Jean?
Jean Segura. Yep.
I say Jean because I like saying the French version. And then Segura, he had a couple good games as well. Put together a couple solid performances and whatnot. Some of the bigger name guys on the Phillies, like McCutchen and Harper, didn't necessarily play too well. McCutchen's one of my favorite players of the last decade or so, so I always root for him, but he was just kind of mediocre. And then Harper had a couple defensive fumbles and didn't do much. So I'd give it to Hoskins and Segura just because I think they were the 2 guys that really stood out to me. But the Phillies didn't have a ton of players that really wowed me this series, even though they have some pretty solid talents on that team. And obviously, in terms of pitching, I'd got to give it to Wheeler. I think out of every pitcher the Sox have faced, he has one of the best outings this year. I mean, 12 strikeouts is a very good outing, and 7 innings pitched too. Like, that's crazy. I mean, he shut down the Red Sox, and yeah, I mean, 12 strikeouts for anybody like that, I'm sure for him was a huge morale boost. So yeah, I mean, I hadn't previously heard of him, so I don't really consider him like a big name, like ace type guy. I'm not really sure. I actually didn't know who he was, but
me too.
But he actually puts together like one of the best pitching performances against like even some aces the Red Sox have faced have struggled, like Giolito and Ryu in that first time they played him, and yeah, just to pitch that well, like, I mean, that was just incredible.
So I actually just did a quick Google search because now I remember Zach Wheeler. He actually used to be on the Mets when they had that dominant rotation with Harvey, DeGrom, Syndergaard, and Wheeler was like number 4 on that guy. So I kind of remember him now. He was my pitcher of the series, just like you. 7 1/3 innings pitched, I believe. Yeah. 7 1/3, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 12 strikeouts. Him and Means on the Orioles have probably had 2 of the most dominant starts against our offense this year, along with Ryu in the Blue Jays series. Just fantastic stuff from him, and he even retired 15 in a row at one time, so that's 5 straight no-hit innings. Brad Miller, for an offensive player for the Phillies, obviously he had the homer in Game 3 of the game yesterday. That pretty much won the game for the Phillies right from the get-go in the first inning because he had that nice 3-run shot to get it going. And John Segura and Herrera also did well. They had multi-hit games, scored some runs, got some RBIs. So good series from them too. Not too much else to say there. How do you think the series against the Braves is going to go? It's a 2-game set, and the probable pitcher for the Red Sox tomorrow night, it's going to be Garrett Richards versus Charlie Morton, who's 2-2 with a 4.6 ERA. And then Wednesday is Nick Pivetta versus Drew Smyly, who's 2-2 with a 5.11 ERA. So Smiley's been struggling. Morton had a good start last outing as he only allowed 1 run over 6 innings. How do you think this 2-game set is going to go for Boston?
I'm just Googling the Braves right now to see how they've been doing lately. Oh, yeah, they had 20 runs the other day.
Right. They first team in baseball this year to score 20 runs.
Yeah. I forgot the Braves offense was as good. Yeah, so the Braves and Red Sox have really good offenses. So I definitely think in these 2 games there's going to be a lot of runs scored, especially considering the ERAs of the 2 starters for Atlanta. And Richards he's been doing better, as we've said, but he again can give up quite a few runs. We've seen that. And I think if any team could crack him, it'd be a team like the Braves where they can put together like a ton of runs because they have a great offense and a lot of talent there. And I think the second game, too, they could get to Pivetta as well, although he's been probably the most consistent guy this year out of the rotation. But yeah, I'm because both teams have really good offenses and the pitching matchups are similar-ish in like ERAs and the guys they're throwing out. I'm going to say it's a split because I don't see the Red Sox losing 2 in a row after the momentum they've been having lately in the last few weeks. I just don't see them losing 2 straight. But the Braves are another really solid team. They're an NL team, so again, the pitch hitting thing is a factor. And the Braves have a really excellent offense. So I'm going to say a split, and I think they're either going to be really low scoring games or really high. But I think they're going to be high scoring games, and it's going to be a split, but they'll be close games too.
I think we're going to split too. I feel like that's the safest bet. Garrett Richards versus Morton. I think that's going to be the game that you're talking about that will have probably the most runs. I think as much as I love that Garrett Richards, he's gone 4-0 with a 2.27 ERA in his last 5 starts. He's bound to just scuffle a bit at some point, and I hate saying that, and I'm not preying on his downfall, but I just think it's going to happen, and I feel like it could be a game like this, although I have been proven wrong multiple recaps now. I feel like I've said that the last couple of recaps, and Richards has continued to throw gems for the Red Sox, but I think it could happen here. But I do think the Red Sox could win a shootout here in this first game against the Braves in a high-scoring game. And game 2, I think we'll end up losing in the series. I don't think Pivetta will have a bad outing because I don't think Pivetta is going to have back-to-back bad outings. But I think we could lose like maybe a 3-2 or 4-3 decision where Drew Smyly, who, he's not having the best year so far this year, but he's historically been a pretty solid pitcher. I remember him pitching for both the Tigers and the Rays back in the day. So I think he could put together a good start. We'll see what happens, but I think it's going to be a split, and the Red Sox take game 1 in a high-scoring shootout, but we lose game 2 in a low-scoring nail-biter. So that's what I think will happen. But yeah, that's going to do it for this recap, or should I say recaps, since we did 2 series. We're closing in on almost 90 minutes.
Yeah.
None of the other recaps will be like this, but it was just extenuating circumstances where we had to do 2 recaps in one, or 2 series recaps in one. So we hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to absorb that like button, absorb that subscribe button. We will have more Red Sox recaps coming, more Celtics recaps coming. Once again, if you didn't see the Celtics recap that I filmed earlier with my good friend Trevor, make sure to check that out now. And there will be another one coming after game 2, excuse me. Bruins recap will be coming later tonight with my cousin Brian. We will be recapping the Bruins gentleman's sweep over the Washington Capitals as they move forward in the NHL playoffs. Patriots recaps will also be coming once their season comes back in the fall. Looking forward to that. Reality TV show recaps will be coming in the summer once my favorite shows, Survivor and Big Brother, return. And personal interviews will also be coming with my good friend Andrew, as we will be, on occasion, just picking random people to interview, and we'll just get to know them on a personal level. So look forward to all these things. That is going to do it for this recap. Thank you again, Ricky, for joining me. We will talk to you sometime soon. I'm not sure when it will be, whenever I'm well enough to do another recap, but hopefully it's sooner rather than later. Love you guys. Have a good one. Oh, before I forgot to say it.
I was like, whoa,
I almost forgot. Tell us what you like, what you didn't like, what you like about us, what you don't like about us in the comments. That is all. Take care, guys. Have a good one. See ya.